big word.
Right, it is. And they're going to make fun of me forever. But
Big would give
I
me
say
trouble.
let's just set the mood right for this letter.
Is Susan Boyle coming on later?
No, she's not. It says, Dear Josh,
This is not
Carrie,
my
and
country,
Liz.
'tis of thee, by the way, in this context. Just so you know, it's God Save the Queen.
Well done. It says, Dear Josh, Carrie, and Liz, I thought it was going to be funny. And you guys are all like,
think it's
whatever. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Like,
I said Susan Boyle. That was kind of some humor.
that was
Yeah.
kind of funny. I just thought you guys should think that was cute, but I guess
Yeah,
not.
I like
All
it.
right.
I always like adding.
Gareth, I hope you liked that little touch. Okay. Dear Josh, Carrie, and Liz, etc., thank you for the excellent work you do on your podcast. I am one of your British listeners.
Yes.
I'm not going to try the accent. And it is very refreshing.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
Also. And it is very refreshing to hear the abortion issue discussed in a straightforward and logical way. It seems that in the UK it is impossible to have a public debate without getting bogged down in irrelevant side issues. I know how that is. I'm sure you know that our parliament recently voted on an embryology bill, and all the debate centered around whether or not a fetus was viable at 20 weeks or 24 weeks, and whether embryonic stem cell research ought to be allowed to use human-animal hybrid embryos. No pro-life group
Scary.
successfully reopened the central debate on the basic, central issue of the rights of the unborn. Seems to me that the British public has reached a rather depressing consensus that abortion is a perfectly fine fact of life, and not even the pro-life pressure groups seem willing to challenge that view. Those that do inevitably sound like rather angry lone voice, ranting and raving like a madman. So thanks for letting us feel like we are not alone on an island. Pun absolutely intended. And I'll just say, I know people have said in a lot of ways when we talk about like social issues like Europe, or at least Western Europe tends to be, anywhere from 10 to 50 years ahead of America is basically what I've heard very, numbers or whatever. Like, I was in the Netherlands debating people on euthanasia. Only Oregon had assisted suicide, but like they actually have like even more than what Oregon has. So I would say that should be a warning to us that this is what America could become if we don't let off. But then he says, on a lighter note, I thought I'd offer a comment on the recent discussion about the bumper sticker, Ich bin ein Embryo. We had talked about whether that would be a good bumper sticker or not. And he says, as I'm sure you know, the original comment by JFK, Ich bin ein Berliner, has an interesting alternative translation. Literally, it reads, I am a donut.
What?
Yeah,
Yes.
because there's a particular variety of donut in
Yes,
Berlin
Berliner.
called a Berliner.
Yeah.
And I had actually found this out as I Googled this. I just didn't bring it into the conversation.
I
But
was going to say, I don't
he said one of our comedians has pointed out that it's a good thing he didn't do a tour of Germany, or he would have got phrases like Ich bin ein Hamburger and Ich bin ein Frankfurter. Yours in Christ.
I love that.
Gareth.
Cute.
Hamburg.
really cute.
Hamburg.
It's just nice to have international fans. Next piece of listener mail. From New Lono, one of our he writes
New
more
Lono.
listener mail than anybody, and I'm not going to get into the whole story behind the name. It's the name he goes by. This is a really good question. Let's face it, abortion stinks. Another innocent life irretrievably snuffed out every 23 seconds, though to their credit, 40 Days for Life does take a tiny bite out of this during 22% of the year. Thousands of women scarred, a political establishment hell-bent on keeping it this way, and even infighting within the pro-life camp. Right now, I'm in an ongoing discussion with a guy who denies the personhood of newborns and a lady that just changed her mind from late-term abortion is murder to I have to support abortion even at 10 months for the sake of consistency. Ad hominems abound. When actively pro-life, it's not hard to get down in the dumps.
Yeah.
What do you do when the reality of the situation really sticks and you get all, and he puts a sad face? How do you do full-time pro-life work? How do you talk about abortion or think about abortion every day and not get down in the dumps? Liz.
Well, he hit the nail on the head when he talked about the 40 Days for Life program, and we just wrapped that up. Well, we're almost going to start it again now, but it feels like we just wrapped up last year's event, and it was a huge encouragement to me to see the babies that were saved, that we heard about out there, and to hear the testimonies of people whose minds and hearts had changed through that experience, or who came into the experience, and hearing those stories and seeing, even though you're not there, knowing that there was a birth of a child and a new life brought into the world by our work. I mean, through God's grace, by our work. And so knowing that and getting that encouragement during that part of the year really helps when you then go talk to people and you realize the sadness of the situation. So it's kind of the new birth into that really helps.
Cool. Yeah.
You know, I would have to take a lot of what Liz has said as part of the reasoning for me as well. And one of the things that to analogize this situation, if you think about in decades and centuries past, think of like the wagon trains that were coming across the North American continent, they would have death and sickness every day. They were encountering something like that. But what they celebrated was they celebrated the new birth. They celebrated the birthday. They celebrated the arrival at the next town. Yeah. You know, knowing that they were going to have another 1,000 miles of wasteland to go through. And for us, the way that we can stay motivated is we can look at the successes. And when you look around this world, if you cannot look at success, if you are too focused on failure in anything, you're going to encounter some deep, deep depression. Yeah. You have to go, all right. And this is where, as a person of faith, I go, okay, this is the worst I'm going to encounter. Right. And it stinks, but there's a lot of success to celebrate, and I can see success in the future.
I just thought of a great quote that's from Edison, Thomas Edison, when he was asked about how he felt when inventing the light bulb. And he had tried, and it was in a movie or something, I don't know the exact quote, but he had tried thousands of ways before, and he was asked how he felt about those failures, and he said, I learned 1,000 ways how not to make a light bulb. And
somebody Wikipedia that and find out that's
there is a
quote.
Right.
Or that's
it's in National Treasure.
Quote.
Great.
Oh, it's in National Treasure.
It's in a movie.
My bad.
Movie.
Okay.
So it must be a script.
Gotta be good, right?
You know, I don't know if I know you have the email that I replied back. If you would want I read that, that's fine with me. But you know, my basic answer back to him was just a perspective change and understanding that you as one person can only do so much. And I think sometimes we get overwhelmed in a sea of need for change in whatever area it is, and it can become overwhelming. But I think that perspective that if you do what's in front of you and you continue to do it, then you have, you know, like you said, you have success. And you don't always see those. I mean, what I share with them, too, is just, you know, I've worked with teenagers for over 10 years now. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, 5 years down the road or longer, I get a response back from somebody who maybe wasn't doing so well. And now their life is on track. And you just think, you know, or they'll say, hey, when you did this really meant a lot to me. And it's something that I would never have known. I don't always find that out. And, you know, I don't always have an impact in someone's life. Yeah. But it's those stories that keep me going. And I realize that, you know, I can do my part.
I would say another piece to it. I would analogize with parents, and if you are a parent who reads the news, you know there's a lot of really lousy things happening to kids. Yeah. There's a lot of semi-successful attempts to reform that, but mostly it's pretty
there's still
lousy out there. There's still a lot. But when you raise your own kids, you can take joy in the fact that 1, 2, 3, 4. I have brought up 4 wonderful children. I've given them a wonderful experience at the start of life. That you can't get all depressed about, well, what about the next 80 years that they're going to live? You got to go, I've done what I could to make it exciting and a wonderful life for them. And you just got to have some faith. And if you don't have at least some kind of faith, and I know here on KNXT, a lot of people of faith are watching this. So we have listeners of varying opinions on that. But if you don't have at least some faith, any kind of issue like that is going to be depressing, and you've just got to recognize that from the get-go and try and take faith in it.
Let me just say this wasn't in my email, but Nulono, you know, has been someone that has been an avid listener of our program. I know based on the emails that he sent that he's someone that is active in the pro-life arena, and you know is always looking for new viewpoints and wanting to refine what he believes in different areas. And so, you know, I would just encourage him personally, if you're listening to this, watching this, wherever, you know, that you're doing a good job. So don't get discouraged. You know, allow yourself to have some encouragement and you know, be okay with that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Did I sound a little Stuart Smalley?
That was a little bit. That's all right. All right. Ask me how I don't get into the dumps on abortion.
How do you stay out of the dumps on abortion, Josh?
2 words. Guitar
gosh.
Hero.
Oh, seriously.
All right, no, I had to lighten it up.
But distractions are
Okay.
good,
Serious.
though.
All right, if you want to open that can of
Okay.
worms, are you ready? For
Okay, no. We've already heard about your Lord of the Rings online game that you guys are addicted to.
Okay, but you know
Awesome,
what?
okay.
A little bit of silliness is okay in
and
life.
you know what? That is one of the things that keeps me not being depressed. Is honestly, I mean, this is a weird
Brian Regan.
show. Amen. This is a weird show, and this has been a little bit weird for people because we're talking about abortion.
And we
Just
laugh.
about every episode, and yet we tell jokes, we laugh, we banter around, we
fun.
call each other
to.
names.
What's wrong with us?
Because I know, and that's a really weird line to walk, and it's not
Absolutely.
an easy line to walk. And we've been really purposeful in the way we've talked a lot about how do we want this to be. But yeah, I don't want this to be a depressing. This is going to be the worst half an hour of my week. Here we go again. I'm going to tune in to KNXT, and here we are, going to be down in the dumps again. Here's another video of abortion.
We should
That's
do
not
we
what
should
we're
do
gonna
one show in monotone frowns.
No.
Just
No.
all right. All right.
No, well, don't invite me to that one because I won't survive.
Yeah,
but
sure.
you know, when I was growing up, we had a quote on one of the doors in my house that said, "Lord, teach us to laugh, but don't let us forget we cried." And I think that's a really great motto for even what we're doing here. I mean, you know, for a period of my life, I lived in an abusive, alcoholic home,
Right.
and my mom and I are able to joke about that. It's not because that's a funny subject,
Right.
but you have to be able to have some kind of perspective during hard things.
Yeah.
And not take away from the hard
Yeah,
aspect
absolutely.
of it, you know.
I mean, seriously. I mean, I think finding joy in things like cuddling with my wife at the end of the day and watching a movie and just hanging out. Once the kids are in bed and everything. I mean, stuff like that. Taking the time to do things like that.
Absolutely.
That's how. Because you can't be thinking abortion all just 24/7.
Right.
You just can't.
No.
You
We
have
run
to.
the show.
I remember I actually made fun of you on the show, and I still feel a little bit bad because I was being overly
gosh.
critical because you had talked about something about watching TV, and I had made some snide little remark like, "Oh, you're not reading books," and I felt like I was trying to be funny, but then I felt bad because I'm like, I'm not reading books every night either.
I'll tell you what. I will be honest. I watch some pretty stupid things on television.
You have to.
But it makes me. When I have,
Well, there's debate on that subject. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Reality TV
Shun.
is never have to be watched.
Okay, but I do watch some of it because I like to be able to sit and just go because I can turn off
and
my
she
brain.
does that.
Yeah, mentally. No, I don't actually literally do that.
Because that would be weird to me if you came to my house and we turned on a show. You're like,
Oh, wow.
that would be odd.
Wow.
Carrie, can you turn that down? I can't hear.
Noah would love it.
So you're saying mentally
Noah
you
would
do
love
that,
it.
though.
Yeah, I mean that's
You just
the state of mind.
decompress.
Yeah, you have to.
Another way of saying
Very
it.
nice.
We're not
Thank
You know,
Secret
and
Human.
also a little perspective. William Wilberforce worked his whole life trying to abolish the slave trade, and he did not see success right away. Like pro-lifer, I see a lot of pro-lifers complaining, well, we haven't done it in 40 years, so obviously the stuff we're doing is not working. No. It took like 100 years. It took more than 100 years to get to the point where we are now, where, I mean, black people get to use the same, bathrooms and everything, like the way
Women
it's
get to
supposed to
vote.
be.
There's all
Yeah,
kinds of
it's
things.
okay. It took a long time for some of these things, but Wilberforce was depressed too. A lot of the
he
time.
went through a lot of
Went through
physical
a lot
issues.
of
Yeah.
physical issues and depression, and just having a little perspective, like we are in this movement to try to cut now, and I think we're going to see in our lifetime, maybe not. No, just kidding.
Oh.
It's been too long since I made an old Carrie joke.
Okay.
Anyway,
I
I think no, we don't have time. I think we're going to see in our lifetime a time when abortion is legal abortion is ended in our country, and it's going to make it all this stuff worth it.
I agree.
You've been watching Life Report, pro-life talk, real-world answers. Life Report is produced by Right to Life of Central California. Visit their website at fresnoprolife.org.